What is up, it's a Figure Hunter, and this is the review for the best training watches of 2022 when specifically training in CrossFit or high-intensity interval training. For those of you looking to purchase a new device to get into a new training regimen going into 2023. So this will be updated about every 6 months. So we're going to categorize it by price and look at the features and the pros and the cons of each. Some of the devices I have, some of the devices I actually don't have anymore. So we'll look at as much content as we can. If you like this review, please give it a thumbs up and please consider subscribing for more. I've got the Garmin Tactix 7 Pro review coming up, as well as the comparison of the Tactix 7 to the Fenix 7X. So what are the requirements for a watch that is going to make this best of 2022 list? Well, one, it has to connect to a chest strap. So you have to be able to have accurate heart rate tracking and so much movement across the wrist, especially in CrossFit when you're wearing wrist sleeves or hand protectors. You want to be able to take the watch off and just connect to a heart rate monitor so that you get all the quality analytics without actually having to wear the device. The number two is it has to keep up with workout exertion levels. So it's got to be able to evaluate the rigor of a workout, not just show you a heart rate graph, and better yet, training load over a period of time, like how much exertion you're placing on your body over a prolonged period of time. And then three, it's got to be able to track the recovery and wellness information and provide advice and guidance within that wellness information for you to be able to adapt your training regimen based on how your body is recovering or not recovering. So with that, let's dive in. We're going to do it by price. So basically $150 or less, $200, $300 to $400, $500, and then $600 plus. So first up on the under $150 is the Huawei GT Runner. So this could apply to the Huawei Watch Fit 2 or something like that. That's 150 or less. If you are outside the US, this doesn't apply if you're a US consumer because you can't buy these in the US. And if you did try to buy it, you're going to pay a little bit more than the $150 price tag. But for those everywhere else, this is a great deal for under $150. It's crazy how much it includes. So what are the pros? The pros are it has a large 1.43-inch screen. It's an AMOLED screen, and it's an AMOLED screen that even if you leave always on display, it offers a battery life of over 3 days. I think I was getting 3.6 days. It's fully functional, even if you are in the US and you did buy it. If everything fully works for the most part, you're missing some basic features, and you can see a full review down below. The heart rate accuracy is excellent, even when tracking it from the optical, keeping it on the wrist, and you can connect to an external chest strap. It's very good looking, and probably one of the biggest things is it has training effect, aerobic and anaerobic by workout, and a recovery time recommendation from the rigor of one workout to the plan of the rigor of the next workout, as well as training load over time. The cons of this is it's got very limited wellness. So it does track your sleep, so that's a baseline for when you went to bed, when you woke up. It's got sleep stages, although it's been somewhat proven that the sleep stages aren't totally accurate. It's got stress tracking, but that actually doesn't provide you any useful information because during the day when you would actually be stressed, it's not able to pick up stress evaluation scores. The sleep score is not very useful. I got between 78 and 82, like exactly the same all the time, even though my sleep is like this. And then the training index. There's some training features on this watch that aren't activated unless you are a runner. So if you are a runner, though, this packs a ton of value in it, even though that the training load, the training effect, and the recovery time are algorithms written by Huawei. And I tend to find that they under-evaluate the recovery time needed and the training scores compared to other devices by about 30 to 40%. So you have to multiply everything a little bit higher, especially on the recovery time side. So coming up next, we have the Polar Pacer. And this isn't the Pacer Pro, which is like its big brother that has a couple of additional features. But this is the Polar Pacer at $200. Now this would be a watch I would actually list as a strong recommendation for a worthwhile watch when doing exactly what we talked about, connecting to a chest strap, evaluating your training and your training load over time, as well as quality, wellness, and recovery features. So on the pro side, you have training load, and the training load is a simple calculation of your last 7 days of rigor versus your last 28 days of rigor. Is it more? Are you pushing yourself harder? Or are you declining? And it bases it simply on that, and you can see it across a big, huge chart over a long period of time, which is great. The other primary feature is the nightly recharge, which is an evaluation of your autonomic nervous system rejuvenation over the night, as well as your sleep details and sleep score, to give you one basic simple recommendation for whether you got a good night's sleep and you're ready to train, or whether you need to calm down and take it easy. It also has some nice features to it. Specifically, I like the activity tracking. It just basically says, looking at your day, how active in general were you, whether it's workouts or really just running around. It's got fitness tests built in, and overall the Platinum platform is very streamlined and simple. Now on the con side, there's a few basic things. So the screen size is 1.2 inches, and that's just somewhat behind industry standards right now. It's overall a very simple platform, so you can't customize, you can't add third-party stuff, you can't expand it very much. So that's sort of like a 50-50 con. And the other primary big con for me is that notifications. So within today's world, I use an iPhone, and the notifications are super spotty. They'll get them, sometimes they won't, at other times, sometimes you'll get old notifications over and over again. So that's just something that just absolutely needs to be fixed. But the Polar Pacer is a great overall watch for $200. Next up, we have a watch that I don't have. We have the Garmin Forerunner 255, and that's either $350 or $400 if you would like music capabilities. The pros on this device are that it includes basically everything that we've mentioned on the other devices, but it does it even better and more elaborately. So it has a 1.3-inch screen, which is fantastic. It's got full customization and third-party apps, and you can expand, you can tweak what widgets come in what order, and you can adjust the watch faces and get other watch faces. It's got a new feature to the 255, which was not fully included in the 245, which is advanced training analytics. So you get much more training in-depth analytics, whether it's the aerobic or the anaerobic training effect from each workout, the training load tracking over time, as well as the recovery time is now advanced recovery time, which includes multiple factors, not just the rigor of the workout. It's got body battery for evaluating your heart rate variability and your stress throughout 24/7. Heart rate variability tracking nightly, a morning report to tell you how you slept and how recovered you are for the day, as well as a bunch of specialty sports profiles. So a lot of devices have 150 sports profiles, but it's really just tracking your calories burned and your heart rate over that period of time, where Garmin actually has sport profiles that take into account multiple factors. You could do an indoor rowing session, and it'll count your strokes per minute. You can just do a bunch of different features with Garmin's specialty sports profiles. The cons on all the Garmins, and we're going to say this once and then repeat it maybe slightly on the other Garmins that pop up on this list, is that the sleep stage tracking is less accurate than others on the market right now. So it'll track when you went to bed, when you woke up, it'll track your heart rate variability, track all those things, and that seems to be excellent. But the sleep stages, whether you got REM deep or light sleep, is not as accurate as other devices. So take that for what it's worth. Now, an honorable mention, I have two in the $300 to $400 range. One honorable mention is the Whoop band. Now, the Whoop band is wellness heavy, although it does track your exertion level throughout the day from a workout, as well as your overall busyness throughout the day. But it doesn't do as much on training load and training load trends. It just says how much exertion did you. But it's really heavy on the wellness, taking a multiple of measurements of temperature, resting heart rate, respiration, as well as heart rate variability throughout a night to give you guidance on how ready you are for the next hard workouts. You can't connect it to an external chest strap, but it's still on the list because they do make bicep bands, and you can throw it on your bicep, and it's highly accurate, or nearly as accurate as you would need it to be. And then the other con with this is that it's $30 per month, and now they require a 12-month subscription. So this is baseline, a $360 device that does not tell. Now, the other honorable mention is the Polar Ignite 3, which is $329. Now, this has all the same features of the Polar Pacer, as well as a big, beautiful AMOLED screen with a curved dome glass. Now, the curved dome glass may be wanted or not wanted, depending on your preference. It has always on display, but it is very vibrant. And so that is one of the big differentiators amongst all the Polar lineup. And even from the Ignite 2, which was a different technology of a screen. Now you have AMOLED. It's a very reasonable battery life at about 2.5, maybe 3 days if you leave the screen always on. So it has all the features for the training load and the nightly recharge built into it, plus a big, beautiful display. The cons of it are that the screen is a little bit finicky. It's not always reacting. It doesn't actually feel your finger press. Oftentimes you have to be very careful and just very delicately place, the finger so you can get it to actually activate what you want it to. And then the second thing is that it's got a slower processor. So you'll notice a definitive lag when you're going through screens, or you push the back button, it'll have a visible lag before it goes back or does what you're asking it to. But still an honorable mention, and a very pretty watch all around at $329. Now, getting into the $500 watches, and $500 overall is the best watch for the features, the sheer number of features for the cost for the watch is the Garmin Forerunner 955. And again, I don't have it. I have to buy watches one at a time, buy them myself. Companies don't send. So I have to not keep every watch that I want to keep. The pros is all the same for the 255. So that full laundry list, the 255 with its heart rate variability tracking overnight, the morning report, body battery, advanced training analytics, recovery time, all those same features are built into the 955, but it also includes a touchscreen and full topological mapping across all of the world. So you'll have a full map. You can route to trails. You can route to a Starbucks. Just very in-depth mapping that is unlike even other watches that offer mapping features. This is full built-in mapping that can take you where you need to go. And that's pretty elaborate. Plus, it does offer a little bit more training analytic features over the 255. Now, the cons on this just go back to the same cons for the 255, and that is that the sleep stage tracking is less accurate than other watches that are available on the market, although it does offer those other wellness features and body battery, heart rate variability, as well as a sleep score that are of great worth. This is, again, the most feature-rich watch for the price on the market today. And ironically, it's $100 cheaper than it was originally released 3 years ago in the 945. So it's much more feature rich and $100 less 3 years later. An honorable mention in the $500-ish range is the Apple Watch 8. So the Apple Watch Series 8, you could obviously pick up a 7 and it's going to accomplish these same things. You could always pay more money and get the Apple Watch Ultra. So the Apple Watch Series 8 is at $500. And it offers a few basic things. On the Pro side, it is the world's smartest smartwatch. And it obviously only connects to iPhones. That's on the con side, but it's the world's smartest smartwatch. It is definitely heads and tails above everything else. And it's also the best heart rate and sleep stage tracking device on the market. So if you had to wear it connected to your wrist, didn't want to wear a chest strap, it's going to get the most accurate heart rate. But that applies to a huge con, which is why this is just an honorable mention. And the huge con is that there are no built-in advanced training or wellness analytics. So it can take all this data, but you have to rely on third-party software writers to to convert the data into some sort of recommendation when it comes to your training load, as well as wellness recommendations. And the third-party apps are somewhat dependent on a little bit more limited software writing teams and a little bit more uncertain algorithm evaluation of the data that they're pulling in. So it's not giving you the full sports and training baseline that we talked about in the very beginning. And then behind those cons, it only works with an iPhone, and it's got way more limited battery life than any of the other even prettier screens, unless you go up to the expensive $800 Apple Watch Ultra. And now you have the big boys. So now you have the 600 plus, and I put in this category the primary Garmin lineup, $600 or above. So that's the Phoenix 7, 7S, 7X, that is the Epix Gen 2, that is the Enduro 2, and that is the Tactics 7. And you can see here the 7X, and I have the Tactics, and we'll look at that very briefly. Tactics 7. So these include all the same features of the 955 and obviously of the 255, but you have the ability to get AMOLED. If you're looking at the Epix, you have a stainless steel or all titanium casing. You have a sapphire display. You have multiple different straps sometimes that comes with these watches. You have battery life that's, you know, twice as long as the 955 or the 255, plus you have specializations. So additional specialty sports profiles or even custom specializations when it comes to hunting, when it comes to tactical use, when it comes to an extra long, you know, the Enduro 2 has the longest battery life of any Garmin that's on the market today. So you have a lot of capabilities there. And the con across all those is the price. Now, the price is obviously at the upper echelon of all of these things because you're going anywhere from $700 to $1,100 if you compare the Tactic 7 Standard or the Enduro 2, and then it's even above that if you wanted some super specialty version of the Tactic 7. So when I think about all these watches, you know, so in summary, I'm going to talk about two things. What I think about the Garmin and the watches that I've listed and why it's so Garmin heavy. And then secondly, what's not on this list. So when you look at watches on the market today, you know, Garmin just offers the biggest, broadest set of features at the baseline watches and up of those I mentioned. So, you know, you can't look at the Venue 2 because it doesn't have training analytics or advanced training analytics. You can't really look at the 55 because it also doesn't have advanced training analytics. You could include the Instinct 2, the Instinct crossover, because those do have training analytics. And you cannot look at any of the older generations, in my opinion, if you want to get the best bang for your buck, even though some of those older generations are now incredibly on sale. So if you're looking at, ooh, should I get the 245, Forerunner 245 versus the 255 if the 255 is twice as expensive? Well, you just have to look at realistically, you're going to use a watch for probably 2 years. So absolutely, yes, you should pay more for the more that has newer heart rate sensor, has a new processor, has more training analytics, and has a bunch of other features, plus a bigger screen on the 255 versus the 245. Same thing across the board on the 955 versus the 945. Same thing across the board on the Phoenix 7 versus the Phoenix 6. So you're getting a new heart rate sensor, new processor, new accuracy across the baseline level, plus new training analytics, new wellness analytics, new features in general. So yes, you should not go with the older generations, even if they're on super clearance, and maybe should just trickle your way down to other watches on this lineup if you feel like you are limited to a certain budget. Now, the second thing I wanted to talk about is what watches are not on this list. So Suunto is not on this list, partially because they have good training load, but not a well-built wellness aspects. So the sleep, I felt like didn't give much information. You couldn't dive into it. The sleep score was not very useful, as well as the resources, which is like Garmin's body battery, I don't think is still using a latest and greatest first beat analytics, which is what they used to use. But it does have good training load. So it's like 1/2 of the whole. Secondly, Suunto has higher priced watches, but they have no mapping, no music, and no customization. So for the higher priced watches, it just doesn't compete. So it's not on the list. Coros is not on the list. Why is Coros not on the list? Well, because I feel like Coros, number one, they require 300 minutes of running to be able to activate the training load analytics, which I think is for a CrossFit and high intensity interval community is just too much to ask. And I think it's ridiculous by itself. And then secondly, they offer, in my opinion, just no wellness. They have sleep tracking, but it's a big pile of mess. It doesn't correlate to any recommendations. And even the heart rate variability tracking is a manual measurement. That's only on the Vertix 2. Manual measurement, it's not tracking it for any automatic and not for any length of time other than if you sit and hold still. So Coros is completely off the competition table, in my opinion. The Samsung Galaxy Watch 5, it only works with Androids. There's no training analytics. There's no quality wellness analytics, in my opinion, for what a rigorous training program would require. And it's got more limited third-party offerings than what you would find on the Apple Watch. The Apple Watch can make up for some of that missing software because they have third-party writers that are making it work. And then last, sort of a smaller one, is Amazfit. Amazfit does offer some training load analytics, but it's all written in-house like Huawei, but it is all not useful. And that's what I found, at least. A basic workout that had a 20-minute Metcon or a 20-minute intensity period was like off the charts from the Amazfit evaluation. Like you killed yourself and you need 100 hours of recovery time. So not useful on the training side. And then the same exact problems on the wellness side, not being able to track your stress throughout the day when you would need to track it, and just sort of simple sleep tracking. So with that, that is a review for the best watches for training, specifically with CrossFit and high intensity interval training that came out in 2022. If you're looking to purchase a watch for your training to begin in 2023. And a small side note, don't expect there to be a whole bunch more offerings this year. Like, oh, if I wait 3 months, I'll get a new Garmin watch. Now there will be some, but there were a lot released in 2022. So I would not expect a whole lot. I wouldn't hold your breath and sit on the edge of your seat and wait to purchase if you are wanting to start a good new quality training program, or at least track your training analytics starting in 2023. It's the Figure Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.